God's ways are not confined to logic. His movements don't follow the patterns of man. When God orchestrates a surprise, it will come in such a way that even time must bow, rules will bend, protocols will collapse. Systems that were built to deny you will suddenly become the very bridges that carry you to the promise. There are moments when heaven interrupts earth with something so divine, so unpredictable, that even the wise are left speechless. And that's how God loves to work. In mystery, in majesty, in complete defiance of human limitations. When you've been counted out, boxed in, overlooked, and underestimated, that's when the divine surprise is closest. Because God does not consult man's opinion before releasing his favor. He does not wait for permission from systems that are corrupt. He does not submit his plans for approval by those who doubted your worth. When he moves with sovereign authority. What you thought would take years, he can do in a moment. What you thought would require 10 doors, he can deliver through a wall. And when he shows up, no one can deny that it was him. You see, we've been trained to believe that elevation must look like strategy, that blessing must flow from connections, that breakthrough must follow steps 1 through 10. But the kingdom of God is not a democracy. It is a realm governed by power, not permission. His favor is not earned through formula. It is released by intimacy, faith, and divine timing. And when that moment comes, it will defy every rule written to contain you. The last will be first. The rejected will be raised. The one they mocked will carry the mantle. That's how he operates. Some of you have been waiting patiently, thinking the door would open if you just kept knocking. But God is not limited to doors. He builds his own openings. When he's ready, he won't just open a door, he'll remove the entire wall. He doesn't follow patterns. He creates patterns. That's why you've been hidden. That's why you've been overlooked. Because God was not preparing you for what man could offer. He was preparing you for what no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no mind has imagined. It's easy to doubt the process when it looks like nothing is happening, but heaven does its loudest work in silence. While you were crying in the night, God was drawing blueprints in the dark. While they were laughing behind your back, God was designing a table in front of your enemies. And just when they think it's over for you, just when the report looks final, just when the system has closed every door, that's when the surprise comes. Not from where they expect, not in the way they predict, but from the throne room of glory itself. He will not just bless you, he will bypass the entire system to do it. He will cause those who rejected you to watch your rise. He will make kings lose sleep to make room for your name. He will override tradition, skip steps, reverse orders, and shut the mouths of those who said you were disqualified. The stone they rejected will become the cornerstone. That is his way. That is his rhythm. That is his signature. To bless in a way that confuses logic but confirms destiny. Do not limit God to your expectations. Do not box him in with what has worked before, because what he is about to do has never been done in your bloodline. He's about to use the unexpected to release the undeniable. He's about to birth something through you that couldn't come through the normal process. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. And when the divine surprise arrives, the whole narrative will shift. People will have no choice but to say, that had to be God. He specializes in impossible setups. He waits until the rules are rigid and the doors are shut, just to remind creation that he is still the author of time. He doesn't break rules to cause chaos. He breaks rules to fulfill covenant. And when his covenant is activated over your life, no lie can stop it, no delay can block it, no betrayal can prevent it. His surprise will come wrapped in the very thing that was meant to break you. And instead of breaking down, you will break through. That's why you had to be different. That's why your journey didn't make sense, because he was setting you up for a moment that would shatter limitations. When the blessing hits, it will rewrite every label they tried to place on you. It will silence every whisper, every rumor, every mockery. It will not come through politics or protocol or popularity. It will come through fire-tested faith and heaven's appointment. God's surprise will break every rule because his will is greater than the world's structure. When he speaks, even laws must obey, and when he chooses, no one can undo it. Get ready. The same God who shut the mouths of lions, parted the sea, raised the dead, and shook the grave, that same God is writing your next chapter. And when it unfolds, the world won't just be surprised, it will be in awe. When God begins to move, he does not consult the reasoning of men. He does not study the rule book written by human systems or pause to obey the standards set by society. He is not confined by logic, nor is he limited by what people believe is possible. His divine nature allows him to work outside the boundaries of human understanding, and that is exactly what makes his moves so transformational. When the world says, this is how it's always been done, God steps in and says, watch what I will do now. He speaks and reality reshapes itself. He acts and time shifts direction. His power makes room where there was no space. His will interrupts structure and order without apology. Many expect God to operate within the same lines that people draw for each other. Follow the process, wait in line, build the right connections, gain approval from those in high places. But God doesn't depend on ladders. He creates elevations that don't need man's support. He promotes without vote. He positions without negotiation. When he decides it is time, there is no boardroom, no court, no culture that can say otherwise. And what baffles the world is not just that he blesses, it's the way he does it. He moves in ways that break the predictability of systems. He delivers through wildernesses, raises up from valleys, and calls the forgotten into influence. The world creates its structure based on merit, credentials, appearance, and affiliations. God chooses based on heart, calling, and divine purpose. His movements seem to make no sense to those who rely on visible qualifications, and that's the point. He does it so that no man can boast, so that no one can say the blessing came from the system. He disrupts patterns to reveal his power. The very fact that his surprises seem out of place is the evidence that he is the one behind them. He waits until it looks like there is no way and then creates a path no one ever expected. He waits until the doors are sealed shut and then brings you in through the roof, through the fire, through the impossible. There's something powerful about knowing that the rules which limited others will not define what God does in your life. He's not intimidated by barriers, nor is he impressed by systems. His wisdom goes deeper than logic. His timing doesn't align with your calendar. While everyone is saying, not yet, God is preparing now. And when he moves, it's not gradual, it's supernatural, it's not conventional, it's undeniable. That is why your journey has looked different. That is why others don't understand how you're still standing, because the God you serve does not play by the rules of those who tried to block you. He can take the very thing others use to disqualify you and make it the mark of your elevation. He can raise up someone with no platform and give them a voice that echoes in nations. He can use a quiet, humble heart to bring down proud giants. And when he does it, he doesn't ask for permission. He doesn't delay for paperwork. He doesn't wait until everything is lined up on paper. He moves when he is ready, and when he does, the world must adjust. That is why faith matters more than logic. That is why surrender carries more weight than strategy, because faith connects you to a God who breaks boundaries. Surrender opens your life to a power that flows beyond formulas. When God surprises you, it's not because you maneuvered your way into position. It's because you aligned your heart with the one who sees beyond time. And he chooses the exact moment that will maximize his glory in your story. He's not just interested in blessing you. He's interested in revealing himself through you. That's why he breaks the rules, to show that he is not a servant to systems. He is the sovereign over them. When you trust him, you stop fearing the rules. When you believe him, you stop being anxious about who approves you. You begin to realize that one word from God carries more authority than 1,000 signatures. You start to understand that his yes can override any no. He's not intimidated by statistics, resumes, or rejections. He writes his will in places where others said you would never belong. That's why some blessings don't come from the front door. They come from unexpected places. The backside of the mountain, the prison cell, the broken home, the quiet prayers. These are the places where he prepares his greatest surprises. So when it feels like the world has boxed you in, when it looks like every door is locked, when the process seems too slow and the rules seem too rigid, don't be discouraged. That's when God does his most unusual, unforgettable work. He will come in a way that breaks every rule. And when he does, no one will be able to deny that it was his hand, his timing, and his purpose. He is not subject to the laws of man. He is the lawgiver, the creator, the final authority. And when he decides it's your moment, the impossible becomes the only possible outcome. When God chooses to elevate someone, he does not seek validation from the systems of this world. He does not knock on the doors of committees, nor does he ask for endorsements from the influential. His authority is not rooted in public approval. It is established in the eternal realm where his word is final and his decisions are sovereign. When he lifts you, it is not because of a majority vote. It is because of divine intention. Heaven does not negotiate with the earth when it comes to your calling. What God ordains cannot be overturned by anyone who did not create you. This is why God's elevation often confuses people. It does not follow the familiar paths. It does not wait for man-made timing. It does not respect human hierarchy or systems built on status and control. While others may be standing in line, climbing ladders, and playing the political game to be seen or selected, God bypasses all of it and places his hand on the one he has chosen. It may not make sense to those around you, and it doesn't have to, because when God speaks, creation listens. When he appoints, everything else must shift into alignment. There is something extraordinary about the way God lifts people. He does it with precision and purpose, not for show, not for applause, but because it's time. His elevation is not flashy, but it's undeniable. It carries a weight that cannot be mimicked. It brings a peace that human effort cannot buy. And when God places someone in a position, he doesn't just elevate their title, he transforms their atmosphere. He anoints their steps. He opens realms that were previously sealed. He turns private obedience into public favor. You don't need connections when you're connected to the Creator. You don't need a platform when you're grounded in purpose. God does not elevate to make you famous. He elevates to fulfill destiny. So when you are overlooked, ignored, or underestimated, do not be discouraged. You are not disqualified. You are hidden. Hidden until the moment heaven reveals you, not to impress people, but to impact lives, not to dominate a space, but to shift the environment with grace, with truth, and with unshakable purpose. God's promotion doesn't come with compromise. It doesn't require you to lose your soul in the process. His way is different. It builds character while opening doors. It shapes humility while unlocking influence. And when he promotes you, there's a protection that follows you, an invisible shield that guards you from attacks that were designed to destroy you. His hand is not only the hand that lifts you, it's also the hand that surrounds you. That's why it's better to wait for his timing than to chase after man's opportunity, because when he does it, you won't have to force it. When he opens the door, it won't shut in your face. When he calls you higher, no one can pull you down. God is not looking for the most talented or the most visible. He is looking for the most surrendered. He is seeking those who will carry elevation with reverence, not ego. Those who will stand in rooms and still remember the wilderness. Those who will receive crowns and still remain on their knees. That's the kind of person God lifts. The one who doesn't worship the position but honors the purpose. The one who doesn't crave the spotlight but carries the light. The one who has been refined in silence, trained in trials, and proven in private. When he chooses you, it will not be because you pushed your way into favor. It will be because you were faithful when no one was watching. You obeyed when it cost you everything. You served when it felt like no one noticed. And now heaven has decided it's your time, not because people celebrated you, but because heaven has recorded your posture. And once heaven has approved it, earth must respond accordingly. Elevation by God is permanent because it's rooted in truth. It's not based on opinion polls, seasonal applause, or fleeting trends. It is anchored in eternity. You won't have to perform to keep it because you didn't perform to get it. You won't have to prove yourself to hold it because He established you on His word, not on your image. That's what makes His way different. That's what makes His elevation secure. It is built on a foundation no storm can shake and no enemy can destroy. So when the time comes and God says, rise, don't shrink back. Don't doubt yourself because others once doubted you. Walk in it boldly, not with pride, but with clarity. Not with arrogance, but with assurance. Know that where God has placed you, no one else can replace you. What He has prepared for you is marked with your name, not anyone else's. And the assignment tied to that elevation is not about popularity. It's about legacy. It's about carrying what only you were shaped to carry. It's about being a vessel through which God's glory can be seen in a world desperate for something real. And that, above all, is why His elevation is worth the wait. There comes a moment when everything around you suggests that it's the end. The voices grow louder, the evidence stacks up, the doors shut one by one, and even your own reflection begins to question whether the promise will ever come. You feel like time has run out, like you've missed too many chances, like the weight of waiting has drained the last bit of hope. But what the world calls finished, God often calls the beginning. When people declare it's over, heaven whispers, now watch what I will do, because God doesn't move according to man's clock. He moves according to divine timing that carries eternal significance. The most profound breakthroughs often come at the darkest hour, not because you are forgotten, but because God wants the stage to be completely cleared of all human options. He waits until every crutch is removed, every plan has failed, every backup is exhausted, so that when He steps in, no one can claim credit. He chooses moments of despair to release miracles so that even your enemies must admit that it was nothing but His hand that brought you through. The silence, the delay, the stillness, it's not abandonment, it's divine setup. It's God arranging the atmosphere for a surprise that no one saw coming. There's something about reaching the edge that prepares the soul for transformation. When you can no longer rely on your strength, your network, or your intellect, you begin to lean completely on the one who is greater than all of it. And that's the very posture that God responds to. He doesn't need perfect conditions. He needs surrendered hearts. When everything looks like it's falling apart, that's when heaven is often working its greatest masterpiece. Not in the visible, but in the unseen. Not in the noise, but in the stillness. That's how He operates, disguising destiny inside what looks like defeat. So when the world labels your season as finished, don't agree too quickly. Don't bury what God is still breathing into. The same voices that said it's too late will be the ones forced to witness your rising. The same people who turned their backs when you were down will be surprised to see you standing in places they thought you would never reach, because God has a way of shifting the narrative at the exact moment people stop watching. He works in ways that can't be predicted, through paths that defy reason, and in timing that no man can forecast. Sometimes He lets the opposition grow bold, just so He can expose it with more clarity. Sometimes He allows the rumors to spread, so the truth will ring louder when it's revealed. Sometimes He allows the fire to burn hotter, so the testimony carries more power when you walk through it without a smell of smoke. He waits until the world is certain it's done. Then He resurrects what they called dead. He turns every closed chapter into a new volume and writes lines no man could have imagined. The delay you felt was not denial, it was protection. The silence you walked through was not rejection, it was preparation. God was not ignoring you, He was refining you. Building resilience in your spirit, sharpening your discernment, deepening your dependency, because the next move is not ordinary. The next opening is not something small. It's something that requires a foundation stronger than emotion and deeper than hype. That's why He allowed the storm not to destroy you, but to anchor you. So when the elevation arrives, you're not shaken, you're steady, you're not overwhelmed, you're equipped. And when it happens, it won't look like what people expected. It won't come dressed in protocol or decorated by human applause. It will arrive clothed in divine timing and marked by heaven's fingerprints. Those who counted you out will have no words. Those who thought you lost will realize you were only hidden. And those who tried to take your place will see that God's hand never left your life, because what he begins, he always completes. What he speaks, he always fulfills. And just when they thought your chapter ended, he will write the sentence that changes everything. Your story was never meant to be defined by public opinion. It was written by the author who sees the end from the beginning. So don't lose heart when it looks like it's over. Don't quit just because the crowd stopped clapping. Don't assume God is done just because it's quiet. In fact, that silence might just be the sound of heaven setting the stage. The delay might be the exact pause before the breakthrough. The tension might be the moment before release. What felt like loss will become gain. What looked like rejection will be revealed as redirection. And what was spoken as defeat will turn into a declaration of victory. When they said it was over, they didn't realize who was writing your story. They saw the situation, but they didn't see your source. And now God is about to move in a way that reminds every watching eye that your outcome was never in their hands. It was always in His. And in His hands, nothing is ever truly over. It's just waiting for the right moment to begin again. There is something unexplainable about the way God moves when He is ready to reveal His promise. He does not ask for alignment with man-made schedules or follow the conventional patterns of advancement. When it is time for His purpose to unfold, the rules that once applied suddenly lose their grip. Traditions are paused, customs are interrupted, and familiar methods are rendered powerless. Because when God decides to fulfill His word over your life, He doesn't ask the system for permission. He overrides it with His authority. What was built to delay, deny, or disqualify you becomes irrelevant when heaven issues a command. The natural world depends on systems, steps, protocols, processes, hierarchies. These frameworks are built to ensure order, but sometimes they are corrupted by control, favoritism, and limitation. People become so loyal to routine that they forget how to recognize divine disruption. And this is where God separates Himself. He is not a respecter of structure. He is the creator of purpose. And when purpose demands fulfillment, He steps over the rules that were meant to contain it. He rewrites what man has written. He adjusts what time has declared. He breaks through what tradition tried to preserve, and He does it without apology. God has never needed the world's approval to lift someone into destiny. He is not limited by protocol, nor is He intimidated by established systems. When He elevates, He does it in such a way that the very system that refused to make space for you is forced to witness your arrival. The rules they tried to use to keep you out become the evidence that your access came from somewhere higher. The criteria they said you didn't meet no longer apply when God decides you're the one. And what seemed impossible just a moment ago becomes inevitable in His timing. He specializes in violating expectations, not to cause chaos, but to reveal that His ways are higher, deeper, and entirely different. He doesn't use what's predictable. He chooses what's unexpected. He doesn't always move through institutions. He raises voices from deserts. He doesn't always select the polished. He calls the prepared, even if they look unqualified to man. And in doing so, He breaks every assumption, every formula, every tradition that told you it had to happen a certain way. That's why the story of your life will not follow the common script, because the God writing it refuses to be predictable. Many doors that were closed to you were not closed because you weren't ready. They were closed so that when you walk through, it's evident you didn't get there by following their path. You got there because God made a new one. And it's not just about your rise. It's about His glory being revealed in a place where they thought He wouldn't show up. They thought it would take politics, connections, or legacy to get to the next level. But God will do it without any of those, so that no one can say it was luck or chance or man's help. They will look and say, surely this was the hand of God. He disrupts tradition to introduce transformation. He overturns the system not to dishonor it, but to demonstrate that his power does not depend on it. Sometimes he will even allow you to be rejected by the system so that you don't become loyal to it. So that when he brings you into the fullness of your calling, your gratitude is directed toward heaven, not institutions. Your allegiance is tied to obedience, not opportunity. That's why some doors didn't open. That's why some people couldn't help you. It wasn't a failure. It was divine protection against being owned by a process that couldn't handle your purpose. You see, what God has for you doesn't need validation. It doesn't require signatures or sponsorships. When he decides to move, he will move in such a way that leaves people wondering how it happened, when it happened, and why it happened through someone like you. But the answer will be clear to those who can see in the Spirit. It was favor, not formula. It was assignment, not arrangement. It was promise, not politics. Because when God fulfills his word, it won't resemble anything you were taught to expect. This is why you don't need to panic when things don't go as planned. Sometimes the disruption is not a detour, it's divine intervention. It's God removing the system's hold so that he can release his strategy. And though it may look messy, uncertain, even risky, it is covered by a kind of order that only heaven understands. He is not following the map they created. He is drawing a new one just for you. A route where he gets the full credit, where your story testifies of his creativity, and where the glory belongs entirely to him. So keep walking, even when the rules don't seem to support your next step. Keep believing, even when the structure says you don't qualify. Because the moment God is ready to act, nothing they built can stand in the way. He'll override protocol, rewrite the requirement, and reverse the outcome, not to impress people, but to prove that his sovereignty still rules above every system man has ever built. When God is the one fulfilling the promise, it won't just change your life, it will challenge everything that tried to limit it. There's a reason you felt unseen, unheard, and uninvited while others were celebrated in the spotlight. It wasn't because you were forgotten. It was because you were being preserved. God doesn't discard those he loves. He hides them until the right moment. Rejection may sting, but it's often a sign of divine redirection. Delay doesn't always mean denial. Many times it means heaven is preparing something that cannot be delivered prematurely. When God withholds exposure, it's not to punish you, it's to protect the weight of the calling inside you. You weren't overlooked by accident, you were hidden on purpose. There is a sacredness to being unseen. The world may interpret silence as insignificance, but God sees it as a space for preparation. He doesn't throw you into the battlefield before you've been trained in the secret place. While others are climbing for visibility, he is anchoring your spirit in anonymity, because visibility without stability leads to collapse. And he loves you too much to allow you to be destroyed by a platform you weren't ready to carry. Every season of being passed over, every door that stayed shut, every circle that didn't invite you, those weren't signs of failure. They were evidence that God was reserving you for something greater. Some people are elevated by people, some are promoted by systems, but then there are those who are revealed by God. And when God reveals you, he does it with undeniable clarity. He brings you from the shadows into the light, not to make you popular, but to make you effective. And when that moment comes, the hiding will make sense. You'll realize he was building things in you that applause could never produce. He was developing a strength that only solitude could form. He was refining your voice so that when you speak, it's not from a place of reaction, but revelation. It's hard to be hidden when your heart is burning with purpose. You feel like you have something to say, something to give, something to build, but the doors don't open, the platforms don't come, and the opportunities don't find you. And yet deep inside, you know you were made for more. That tension isn't a mistake. It's a divine indicator that what's in you is valuable enough to be protected. Just like seeds are buried before they bloom, you were covered before you could be seen. And what looks like burial is actually planting. What feels like the end is often the quiet beginning of something eternal. While others may have been gaining exposure, you were gaining depth. While they were being promoted publicly, you were being sharpened privately. God doesn't rush greatness. He shapes it in the dark. He trains warriors in caves, leaders in wildernesses, and kings in obscurity. He allows you to feel the weight of silence so that your identity is not shaped by applause. He lets you walk through lonely seasons so that you learn to hear his voice without distraction. And by the time he brings you forward, your voice doesn't echo insecurity. It carries authority. The people who overlooked you weren't the gatekeepers of your destiny. They were never meant to recognize what only heaven can reveal. And sometimes God will let you be underestimated so that when he elevates you, there's no confusion about who did it. He'll let others pass you over so that when he opens the door, the contrast brings glory to his name. Your journey might not look like everyone else's, and it wasn't supposed to, because what God is doing in your life doesn't require validation from the systems that dismissed you. It only requires obedience to the one who called you. Even the pain of being passed over has purpose. It humbles you. It tests you. It teaches you how to love in silence, how to serve without recognition, how to worship in the dark. It matures you in ways that success never could. And when your moment of revealing comes, it won't be superficial. It will be sealed with substance. It will be more than influence. It will be impact. People won't just hear your words, they'll feel your weight. Because what you carry was forged in fire, not handed to you by convenience. So don't resent the hidden years. Don't despise the seasons of silence. They are not a waste. They are a womb. God was developing more than just gifts. He was cultivating character. He wasn't just preparing a table. He was preparing you to sit at it without losing yourself. And when he finally brings you forward, it won't be to compete. It will be to complete a piece of his plan that no one else could fulfill. Your time is not on delay, it's on design. And when the revealing comes, it will be worth every moment you spent being hidden, overlooked, and underestimated. There will be moments in life when you keep knocking, keep hoping, keep pressing your hands against doors that never seem to open. You believe, you pray, you even fast, expecting that one day something will shift and the entry will be granted. But what do you do when the door remains locked? When every key you try doesn't fit and every effort you make ends in silence? That's when you must understand something deeper about how God works. He's not limited to doors. He doesn't need hinges or handles to bring you into the place he's prepared. He is the God who removes entire walls when necessary. We've been conditioned to expect breakthrough through conventional routes. We look for access the way others have gained it, through connections, through opportunities, through being in the right place at the right time. But the God you serve doesn't have to follow a pattern to prove his power. He can bypass traditions, redefine systems, and create a new route that doesn't involve doors at all. Because when it's your time, nothing will stand in the way. Not the structure, not the timeline, not the rules that once made you feel excluded. He will bring you into rooms you weren't invited to and give you authority in spaces you were never supposed to enter simply because his word overrides every boundary. Sometimes the closed door is not a denial, but a signal that something bigger is being prepared. What you thought was the way in may only be a distraction from the path he is actually building for you. While you were focused on the door in front of you, God was constructing something on the other side that you couldn't yet see. Because his plan is not small. It's not about getting you inside. It's about positioning you in purpose. It's not about making you fit. It's about making you stand out. So instead of walking through a door like everyone else, you're about to walk into a space that God personally carved out for your calling. That's why some doors didn't open. That's why your name was never on their list. Because God knew what was behind those doors couldn't hold the weight of your destiny. He knew what they were building wasn't strong enough to support the promise on your life. So instead of forcing you to squeeze into something that was never designed for you, he allowed you to feel the shut door so that he could release you into something custom built for what he placed inside you. When God removes the wall, it's not just about entry, it's about making a statement. It's about showing that he doesn't need the permission of people to position his chosen. It's about making sure no one gets credit for what only heaven could orchestrate. The very space that tried to keep you out becomes the platform he uses to prove his sovereignty. And when you step in, not through the door, but through the place where the wall used to be, there is no mistaking who made it happen. This kind of move doesn't come from striving. It comes from trusting, from letting go of your obsession with how it's supposed to happen and surrendering to the way God wants to do it. And his way is always higher. It doesn't make sense to human logic, but it aligns perfectly with divine order. He waits until all man-made options are exhausted so that when he shows up, it's clear that he alone is your source, not the system, not the title, not the approval of others, just him. The beauty of God removing the wall is that it often takes you by surprise. You weren't expecting it. You thought the opportunity had passed. You thought the season had ended. You thought the silence meant he forgot. But in the background, he was preparing something radical. He wasn't fixing a door. He was dismantling an entire barrier. And when he finishes, what once blocked you becomes the proof that nothing can stop you. People will see you in places they never expected. They'll wonder how you got there, and they won't find any record of a door, only evidence of divine intervention. And when you walk in, there will be no fear, no need to prove yourself, no anxiety about whether you belong, because you'll know you didn't force your way in. You didn't manipulate it. You didn't beg for it. It was given. It was orchestrated. It was released by God himself. That kind of entrance gives you peace. It gives you power. It gives you purpose. You'll stop chasing doors and start trusting his voice. You'll stop striving for what others are trying to hold and realize that what God has for you can't be contained by structures built by man. So the next time you stand before a closed door, don't panic. Don't question your worth. Don't retreat into doubt. Just remember, you serve a God who isn't looking for doors. He's building something greater. And when it's ready, the wall will come down and you will step into more than access. You'll step into destiny. There is a sacred mystery in the way God chooses to release his favor. It does not follow a checklist. It is not measured by accomplishments, connections, or applause. It cannot be bought with influence or earned by popularity. God's favor flows from a realm that human logic cannot decode, and it is not distributed based on status or social worth. It is drawn to the heart that yields, the spirit that trusts, the life that leans in, not with entitlement, but with expectation. Favor is not a transaction. It is a divine release that rests upon those who dare to believe beyond what they see. What man considers qualification, God often bypasses. While others are running after titles, achievements, or influence, God is searching for surrendered hearts. He is not looking for those who know how to be seen. He is looking for those who know how to listen. Because the ones who walk in true favor are not those who chase opportunities, but those who obey whispers. They follow not the noise of ambition, but the sound of direction. And it is in that quiet obedience, often unnoticed by the world, that favor finds its place and settles with power. There are those who climb through systems, and then there are those who are lifted by grace. The former must constantly work to stay there. The latter simply walk in alignment, and doors open without pressure. This is the difference between human effort and divine favor. One is exhausting, the other is effortless. Not because the journey is easy, but because the source is pure. When favor comes from God, it carries rest. It carries confirmation. It carries evidence that cannot be explained away by luck or logic. Sometimes the reason you've been overlooked is because you weren't meant to fight for favor in places that weren't assigned to you. You were never supposed to compete for what God has already marked with your name. The delay you faced wasn't rejection. It was God reserving the stage for a moment that would not require performance. His favor doesn't respond to talent alone. It responds to authenticity. It locates those who walk humbly, those who serve faithfully, those who seek the kingdom above their own name. God's favor will never call you to become someone you're not. It does not require you to mold yourself into the image others expect. It comes to affirm what God already placed inside of you. That's why it's dangerous to chase favor through imitation. What works for someone else will not unlock what was meant for you. The anointing you carry is not a replica, it is unique. And when you walk in that uniqueness, when you trust who God made you to be, His favor flows freely, not through striving, not through pretending, but through truth. There are moments when God's favor will show up in a way that silences every voice that doubted your journey. People will wonder how you advanced without the usual help, how you arrived without following their system, how you stood tall without leaning on their structure. And the only explanation will be favor, unseen, unearned, but undeniably present. This kind of favor is disruptive. It changes conversations. It alters decisions. It repositions what was already settled. Because when God releases His favor, it doesn't ask for permission. It simply arrives, shifts everything, and proves that heaven's seal carries more weight than man's vote. Some people spend their entire lives chasing visibility, but visibility without favor is a fragile platform. It can lift you for a moment, but crumble under pressure. Favor, on the other hand, builds something that lasts. It weaves purpose into every step. It protects your name when you're not in the room. It defends your future even when others speak against it. Favor is not just about what God opens, it's about what He shields you from. It's about the traps you never knew existed because He rerouted you before you saw them. This is why you must never confuse favor with fame. The world celebrates the loud, the flashy, the impressive, but God's favor rests on the faithful, the humble, the obedient. His eyes are drawn not to those who lift themselves high, but to those who keep their hearts low. And when He chooses to favor someone, He elevates them without arrogance. He promotes them without compromise. And in doing so, He makes it clear that what He blesses, no man can curse. If you felt unnoticed, if you've questioned whether what you carry still matters, take heart. Favor has not forgotten you. It may have been hidden, but it is not absent. It may have been silent, but it is not sleeping. In one moment, God can shift your season. In one breath, He can unlock what others tried to block. And when it comes, it will not require striving. It will feel like alignment, not pressure. It will feel like peace, not stress. Because when God releases His favor, it fits, it flows, and it finishes the very work He began in you long before anyone else saw your value. When God decides it's time to bless you, He doesn't do it quietly. He doesn't slip it into your life in a way that can be mistaken for coincidence. He does it in a way that disrupts narratives, reverses expectations, and silences every voice that ever questioned your worth. The kind of blessing God releases after a season of testing is not just about elevation, it's about vindication. It's about setting the record straight without you ever needing to speak. His favor doesn't just lift you, it exposes every lie, every limitation, every label that others tried to place on your life. He blesses you in a way that speaks for itself. There's a divine beauty in watching God turn the tables without you lifting a finger in retaliation. While you were being judged, misread, and misunderstood, you stayed still, you stayed humble, you kept your heart pure. And now God steps into the scene, not only to restore what was taken, but to redefine how you are seen. The very mouths that spoke against you will be the ones that have to acknowledge the shift. The same people who dismissed you will witness your emergence with quiet awe, because the evidence of God's hand on your life will be too undeniable to ignore. It is not just the blessing that makes people stop and watch. It's the way it arrives. It's how God positions it. He brings it to you through pathways they said were impossible. He uses situations that were meant to break you as the very foundations of your breakthrough. He turns what was once pain into proof, what was once mockery into momentum, what was once shame into strength. The blessing itself becomes a form of divine communication. It tells your story better than your words ever could. It carries the weight of every silent prayer, every unseen sacrifice, every lonely moment of obedience. God doesn't just bless to make life easier. He blesses to make his glory known. And when he decides to put his signature on your season, there is no erasing it. He doesn't ask permission from those who tried to write you off. He simply shows up with undeniable grace and rewrites the ending. What they thought would be your limit becomes your launch. What they called your weakness becomes the place where his power rests. The same people who expected your downfall are forced to witness your rise. Not because you fought back, but because you waited for the one who fights for you. There's a certain stillness that comes when you know God is the one defending your name. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to argue or explain. You just continue walking, trusting, surrendering. And in the silence of your restraint, God begins to roar. He orchestrates moments where his favor finds you in full view of those who never believed in you. Not to humiliate them, but to glorify himself. Because he knows what they said. He knows how they handled you. And still, he chooses to bless you anyway, not because of what they think of you, but because of what he knows about you. This blessing doesn't arrive to boast. It arrives to bear witness. It testifies of God's consistency, his justice, his memory. He never forgot the tears you cried behind closed doors. He never overlooked the times you forgave in silence. He never ignored the pressure you endured without clapping back. And now he brings the reward in such a way that speaks louder than revenge ever could. Your story becomes a demonstration that God exalts the humble in his own time, that he sees what people miss, that he remembers what others quickly forget. People may try to spin your transformation as luck, but deep down they'll know it was God. They'll feel the weight of the process you went through, even if they didn't see it firsthand. They'll sense that what you carry wasn't manufactured, it was molded. The blessing won't just change your situation, it will change how you are regarded. It will break every stereotype. It will undo every assumption. It will clear your name without you needing to defend it. And when that happens, the blessing itself becomes a sword that cuts through confusion and falsehood. So don't be surprised when God does it publicly. Don't be shocked when the blessing shows up in full view of the very people who said it would never come. It's not about proving a point. It's about fulfilling a promise. God is not petty, but he is precise. And when he sets the stage for your blessing, he ensures that the right eyes are watching, not to embarrass your enemies, but to display his sovereignty. Because when he blesses, it's not just for you, it's for the legacy, the example, the message it sends to others, still in their hidden seasons, still in their silent battles. And when that blessing comes, you won't need to say a word. Your life will speak volumes. Your peace will testify. Your joy will preach. Your resilience will echo. And those who doubted you will have no choice but to admit that God was with you the entire time. There are moments when life delivers blows that seem too calculated to be random, situations so sharp, betrayals so personal, failures so public, you begin to wonder if the very thing that was sent your way was designed to break you entirely. But what the enemy meant as a weapon, God transforms into a tool. What was intended to be your ruin becomes the very soil from which your purpose begins to rise. The pain wasn't pointless, it was positioning. The chaos wasn't random, it was construction. And what once stood as your breaking point is now about to become the very platform that lifts your voice, your calling, and your assignment. God does not waste wounds. He does not overlook the moments when you were left bleeding behind closed doors, nor does he ignore the seasons where your silence hid your suffering. Instead, he gathers every scar, every heartbreak, every moment of rejection, and layers it with grace. He doesn't erase the memory of the pain, he transforms its meaning. He takes the mess, the confusion, the weakness, and doesn't just clean it up, he builds upon it. And the very thing that once embarrassed you, the very chapter you prayed to forget, becomes the very testimony that speaks to someone else's breakthrough. You see, elevation doesn't always come from victories. Sometimes it comes from ashes. Sometimes the climb begins where everything else collapsed. And that is the kind of story that only God can write. The kind that doesn't deny the pain but turns it into power. The kind of rise that does not pretend the fire never happened, but instead proves that the fire refined and did not destroy. Your enemies thought the blow they dealt would be final, but what they didn't understand is that God had already factored it into his plan. What they thought was the end was only the beginning of a new expression of his glory. God will take the shame they threw on you and turn it into honor. He'll take the platform they snatched from you and build one you never needed their permission to stand on. He'll use the public humiliation they orchestrated and flip it into public redemption that no one can deny. That's how he works. Not by removing the pain from your story, but by making the pain serve your purpose. You were never just being tested. You were being trusted. God was trusting you to carry the kind of experience that would one day carry others. And that's why the pain couldn't destroy you, because it wasn't the end. It was the foundation. This is how God turns defeat into definition. You don't rise despite what they did. You rise through it. You don't grow in spite of the storm. You grow in the center of it. And the beauty of it all is that you don't even have to seek revenge or try to explain yourself. The transformation speaks for you. The progress is your response. The purpose now echoing through your life is louder than anything they ever whispered behind your back. What once made you weep now fuels your wisdom. What once felt like loss is now rich with revelation. God's restoration is not just about giving back what was stolen. It's about raising you higher than you were before it was taken. He doesn't just return what was lost. He multiplies it. He doesn't just repair the damage. He uses the broken pieces as part of the design. That's how intentional he is. That's how powerful his grace works. And this is why you can hold your head high, not in arrogance, but in sacred confidence. Because the battle was real, the wound was deep, but the outcome is divine. You didn't come out empty, you came out equipped. Sometimes the reason God allowed the attack was because he knew what he would build with it. He knew that when the dust settled, you would not be the same. And that's the point. You were never meant to come out of the fire unchanged. You were meant to come out refined, unshaken, and ready to speak with authority, lead with compassion, and walk in doors that your old self could not have handled. The fire was not a delay. It was a forge. And your platform isn't built from polished stone. It's built from redeemed rubble. So let them watch. Let them wonder how the one they tried to break is now standing stronger, wiser, and more focused than ever. Let them see how the plot they orchestrated became the prophecy they accidentally fulfilled. Because when God gets involved, every curse is reversed, every loss is redefined, and every pain becomes part of a larger promise. And when you rise, it will be evident you didn't rise by luck or chance. You rose because the pain served a purpose, and now the platform stands as proof. Sometimes God's greatest work in your life begins in the very place where your hands feel most empty. When you've run out of strategies, exhausted your options, and watched every effort fall to the ground with no return. It feels like failure. It feels like the end. But often, that emptiness is not abandonment, it's preparation. God allows everything familiar to fall silent so that when he moves, there's no mistaking who did it. He strips away the noise so that his voice rings clear. And when he finally steps in, he does it in such a way that it's not just powerful, it's unmistakably divine. You may have tried to figure it out, build it yourself, or connect all the dots with logic and plans, but nothing seemed to work. Not because you were doing something wrong, but because God wanted you to see that this next move would not be born from striving. It would be birthed from surrender. He let the soil dry out, the connections fade, the opportunities dissolve, because he was about to rain something so unexpected that even you wouldn't be able to explain it. And when he does it like that, when he blesses you in a way that contradicts every visible circumstance, it doesn't just answer your prayer, it builds your awe. God takes delight in doing things in a way that man cannot replicate. He waits until all efforts are exhausted to remind you that he alone is the source. He doesn't just fill empty hands, he fills them in a way that changes the posture of your heart forever. Because when you've tasted failure and then you receive favor, you walk differently. You speak with more gratitude. You move with a deeper reverence. The miracle doesn't make you arrogant, it humbles you. You no longer rely on your ability to bring things to pass. You rest in the one who holds time and seasons in his hand. When God moves in the absence of resources, in the absence of support, in the absence of visibility, it makes a statement to everyone watching. This was not a work of man. This was the intervention of heaven. No money made it happen. No contacts opened the way. No preparation predicted the moment. It was a move so sovereign that even the critics had to pause and admit, this was different. God bypasses all formulas when he's ready to release